Hey, what's up, dudes? Alright, here we are. Another day. Set the timer. 12:35. Timer set. 68 minutes. Alright, let us pick up where we left off. Yesterday, we ended up making minor improvements to with clauses and other miscellaneous code in save logic py file, reviewed some things that need review, etc. Alright, so today, what are we going to be doing? Well, we're continuing through the to-do list, and it's getting shorter and shorter. And the goal is to test the save system that we have added, and hopefully it's gonna work. You know, there's a lot of code added to the project. It's been a very long time since I've tested it, so you know, we'll see how things go. We didn't put what line we stopped at, but I remember exactly where we stopped. We were going to go through the database master save object dictionary to review the order of the objects to see if they're in the proper order for the loading sequence. So we're going to go through one by one to determine if any are out of order. We have to take note of ones that have derivative side effects such as click card active, etc. So I know some of those booleans, they're actually calculated properties. They do have secondary effects, aka side effects, and we just have to be careful about how we handle those, right? Because if they have some bad side effect, we don't want to you know, we want to avoid any weird stuff like that. We just want to load in that specific piece of data and not like touch anything else except for that piece. Alright, so let's go over here to the master save object dictionary, and we're going to go one by one through this. We're going to start at the top here, and so we have C1 apply counter. So I guess the philosophy of this should be that, or my perspective on, you know, like the determination of whether it's in the right spot or not, is going to be by going through this list and I'm not gonna like look at everything that this data point accomplishes. I'm really just gonna think about from a broader perspective of like, if this would, what things might this need before it could be set, you know. This isn't really a comprehensive review of all these data points. It's just really to see if anything jumps out at me to say, hey, shouldn't this apply counter not be set until, you know, the expect counter is set or something like that. But a thing that I have to keep in mind here is, so the load happens, and when the load happens, this is prior to any like operation in the game. This is prior even to what, like before the drawing of the window happens. This is gonna be like before the data is even displayed on the screen, before there's any visual display. Yeah, this happens before even the first draw window main is called. And I want to say that is actually true, because where we're going to put this function call is going to be right here at the beginning of this main while loop. So we'll have the, let's see, let's see if true, save point, true, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so we have while true, client self disconnect equals false, filter dict function. Yeah, so it's gonna happen up here at the top, and yeah, that's going to load in all the data. This is going to be before we ever get down to this point where we end up calling the draw window main. So I think that is important to keep in mind. And that may insinuate that we don't need to worry about like the order like almost at all, you know? Because well, the question is like, well, it's not necessarily critical when the first draw happens relative to the data being loaded in, because honestly we have data like that has nothing to do with the visual display, but that relies on other data being set properly beforehand. So that's not a completely true assessment. So in light of that, yeah, we do have to probably be a little bit more careful. It's not that simple. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So we have C1 apply counter. And what does it do exactly? The C1 apply counter, it does all it's used for is to apply the data. This happens after setup, so this is after setup, but before the drawing of the screen the first time. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any issue with that. C1 expect counter, same thing. Yeah, I think we're safe on that. Then we have the receive data storage dictionary. Those are not like tangled up with any other parts of data, so I don't think like that would be problematic. Received caltuplus, same thing there. But then we have this deck. The deck, what happens with the deck? Like the process. So the process is we start up the client file, setup gets run, the deck gets populated with all the cards. So you know, I'm thinking about this. The deck, we might need this might actually be problematic because the deck is gonna be populated, right? I have a snippet for this. Let's use our snippet below line. Won't this be populated during setup, which happens prior to load the data from DB? If so, we would want to clear the card group first. And I do believe that is true. So if we go to setup, let's see in client, where is setup called? Okay, so setup is called right here, and then we have use the above retrieved info to reconnect to proper game through server. Quite certain this requires a refactor of certain sections of server. Implies it may need to create new feature branch or creation of server refactor to work without damaging current server pi structure, because it involves refactoring functions such as accept connection start threads and associated delicate logic. Do this before reapplying all other saved game data to let other client know ASAP that client has reconnected. Do this before reapplying all other saved game data to let other client know ASAP that client is reconnected. If used checkpoint system. So we run setup prior. Yeah, this is prior to loading data. And that's rather important. So yeah, at this point, this is when we would load the data in, and we need certain things to be set up. So setup gets run prior to the loading in of the data. And yeah, see, we run create double deck, which populates the deck. So it would be fully populated. Okay, so how do we actually fix that issue? So the deck will be populated. Whenever we load the data in, what we're going to do is we're going to run this code down here. Load state function. And it is going to... in this case, this is a number 2. This is a card list. So it will just insert the card into the list. So we're assuming that the list would be empty. But in this case, the list is not empty. And the card group dict has all those cards in it, regardless of whether or not those cards exist in the deck. So what we could do is we could just bypass the calling of this function in the case that we are reconnecting. Because, well, no, because we do want the card to be created. Because this is where the card gets added to the card group dictionary. And I would rather this be done here in setup than me like mess with this and refactor it to be done in a different way. I've had it this way for a long time. Not saying that just because you had it away for a while means it should stay that way, but in this case I think it would probably be best to just leave it as it is, and we'll just add in a line or an argument here to setup. So we do have client is reconnect. So since this attribute is set to true, could we get setup to look into that? But I can't import client into setup because yeah, I can't import client into setup because setup is imported into client. That would be circular import. So what we would have to do, I think, what would be, well, no, we want it to be run. So we just want all this to operate as normal. I'm tripping. We want that to operate as normal. We would just have to clear it after, honestly. And I know that sounds kind of weird. So we create the card. So creating the card intrinsically adds it to the deck. Master deck append current card, initial deck append. We probably should move this to be create double inside create double deck. And I know this is kind of taboo here because it's been in that spot for so long. But I think we should. So the master deck append current card. So every time create card is called, we would want it to be appended. But technically, yeah, this shouldn't be done here. We should do master deck append current card, and then this should return the current card. So then we should say return current card. So then we would say current card equals create card, and then we would just do master deck append. So every time we created a card, we would append it to the card, append it to the deck rather. Of course I'm tired, you know how that is. I'm just like, I always get the crash. It sucks. So we're just going to say current card equals create card rank suit, and then we have master deck append current card initial deck append. So yeah, we just return that current card instead. We create the card which returns the current card, then we append the current card to the master deck. So this is a little bit more proper. And it should work exactly the same. The only difference here is that create card now returns the current card. So what we could do here is, now, since create card literally just creates the card, we could modify this create double deck function. we could modify it so that it so it's gonna get appended to the master deck. Basically, we want everything to happen except the appending to the master deck. Or we could just simply clear the deck. The only thing with that is clear has side effects, I think, because it's a custom append list. So if we look at custom append list clear, we go down here, see everything has side effects. That's where it gets dangerous. Yeah, clear does this other stuff. So we would have an issue there, which sucks. Yeah, self, card group name, and deck discard power, change for check is false. So it does this data transfer stuff. So like we could add we could use an alternative method that doesn't have a side effect. Or so the options are add in code that either avoids the master deck being appended to, or we would add in code that just clears it after the fact. The issue, well, it's not really an issue. I was going to say the issue with that is whenever we reconnected when we ran setup, the deck wouldn't be populated. But we have this stuff that happens after we shuffle the master deck. We change for current card in master deck deck. We add it to the sprite group. So I'm seeing better locations for this code now, but I'm afraid to change this stuff before testing. I am a little bit afraid to do that. Because, well, I don't want to break it. We've changed so much. I'm pretty sure, though, like, we would be safe if we moved this, let's see, card being added to the sprite group. That could happen at the time the card was created. So as soon as the card gets created, we would add the card to the sprite group. And then we say card group dict at current card ID is equal to current card. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like it should be moved. But you know what? The way that I should probably do this is comment it out and stuff. Remember how I said we normally make changes by disabling the code and adding a caution comment? I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so we're gonna do it like this. We're gonna comment it out. Woohoo, man. Organizationally, using the big words, baby. All right, and then here we're gonna so yeah, we're just gonna add comments to all this. It's tedious, but you know. And I know this is going to look ugly at first, but the point of it is not to look pretty, but to be useful, right? We're gonna remove the other lines later. You know, like this. We're gonna remove these caution comments and all that stuff later. Okay, there we go. You see how long that took? Way longer, but now we have the old form of the code, so we're gonna know, like, you know what I'm saying. So if we need to revert back to the old format for whatever reason, and we're thinking that might be the cause of a bug, we're gonna know exactly, you know, this previous structure of this code to easily revert it back. And then if it works, we can just eventually get. That's basically usually how I do it when I refactor code, unless it's like a massive refactor to a large section where, like, you know, even then I will copy the section that I'm disabling or refactoring, paste it in like right above or right below. I don't really have a specific convention for below, above, but anyway, I comment it out, add a caution comment saying, hey, this code is being disabled because it's being replaced by the above section. And then I'll like have the refactored version right next to it. So, you know, once we test it and everything, I let just a lot of time go by, like, you know, a month or whatever, and like once I really know that the new system works perfectly, I just can go back and I'll see that caution comment with the disabled section, and eventually I'll just remove that vestigial code completely. But yeah, anyway, that's how we do that. So I think it's a good practice. It's I think it's pretty clever. I think it's a good way to do it. Anyway, moving on. Okay, what's the next thing we wanted to do? So now create card returns the current card. And what we wanted to do, we wanted to add the. See, we have for current card and master deck, and we do this after the shuffle. So this is gonna need to be before shuffle, remember, because we need to have a mapping, a constant, permanent mapping of a card ID to a particular card. 2 of hearts is mapped to ID 1. 2 of diamonds is mapped to the ID 2. 2 of club is mapped to ID 3. 2 of spades is mapped to ID 4, so on and so forth. So that's really important for loading in and saving data. It has to be 1-to-1, otherwise we're just going to be like dealing with randomized cards. So we have to have that like made constant. So this is gonna solve a couple of those problems. This is going to this is organizationally, like, where should this be? So we have for current card and master deck, we add to the sprite group. I feel like this, you know, I would actually like to revise this even further so that the cards are created completely separately, where we create the cards, and whenever we create the card, we also end up iterating through the card group dictionary and adding each card to the sprite group. Does this make sense? Yeah. I think that's what I want to do. It's just not this setup file, honestly, it's just kind of, it's not that organized. Like, I'm looking back at my older self coding this, and I'm like, it works and it's fine, but it's not like to the quality, mostly like from an organizational perspective, from just being organized. It's all mixed up, you know? It's all mixed up a little too much. I would prefer to not iterate through the deck. Because ultimately, what we're trying to accomplish here is basically, what I would like to do would be to I would like to, whenever we reconnect, to just simply not run create double deck. Does this make sense? Like, because what happens when we run create double deck is it adds 108 cards to the deck. But when we're reconnecting, we don't want that to happen, because we want the deck to remain empty, because what we do right after setup gets called, which intrinsically or derivatively calls create double deck, we would instead leave it empty, and then we would use the loaded data from the database to insert the cards that existed in the game's previous state into the deck. So there might only be 50 cards in the deck instead of 108 cards in the deck. Why would we populate it with 108 cards, then clear the deck, and then insert? That's just like silly, right? It makes more sense to have logic and an organized structure that says, okay, here's what's going to happen. If we're reconnecting, don't run create double deck, because all create double deck should do is basically just run this for loop and append each card to the deck, or the double deck rather. So like we don't need it to create the card inside of the create double deck function. I would rather the card be created completely separately, because also organizationally it's more proper to have the card be created. It's just like, it just makes more sense. You know, you create the card, you do things that pertain to card creation, and part of that is adding the card to the sprite group, adding it to the card group dictionary, and then the create double deck should explicitly only add to the double deck. It's a Python convention that basically states, it's just a programming convention really, that a function should do one thing. And it's okay for a function to do more than one thing. Obviously, sometimes that's just better, because then you could have like 20 little functions, and like that can become more confusing than like 5 functions with like 4 mini functions within them. You know, so like it doesn't have to be 1 to 1, but I would say like 1 to 3, maybe 1 to 5 max. You wanna try to stick to that principle as much as possible, and the reason for that is because of what I'm doing right now. When you come back later and you refactor code, what you run into problems where this code needs to be refactored. Now, how can you integrate this function into the new feature you're adding? Well, you can't as it exists, because it has other side effects. It doesn't just do X, it does X, Y, and Z. And then you would have to add condition where, okay, well, I only want it to do X, I don't want it to do Y and Z. And that just can become, a nightmare. And it makes just more sense, and it would solve you a lot more problems if you would just have the X part of that function be a separate function. So you have the X function, and then you have the Y function, or the A function, which does Y and Z, and then the X function, which does X. So then you can integrate X into the new feature without having to modify that second function. Sometimes, basically, like, the principle that I go by is unless you have to do that, unless you really feel like you need to put them together, don't put them together. It's just a balance thing. It is a balance thing. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to refactor this file a little bit more, and to be a little bit more organized. So I think the smarter thing to do would be this. Instead of having this little section be refactored, we're going to undo these changes real quick. So let's just undo these changes we made to the file. We're going to leave this file basically as it was, right? So let's just go up to the top here. Let's see, what would we really be modifying? All of our changes are not going to have anything to do with this. Let's just go from the top and make sure I'm doing this correctly. We're basically going to copy and paste and then do that disabled section thing I was talking about. So we're going to look through this function. We have def setup. Setup does sets these custom append list instances. That's mostly all it does. And then we have the card group name dictionary. We have the assignment of the face down image. Okay, then we do the create card function, and this is defined inside of setup. And I'm not necessarily sure that this needs to happen inside of setup, because this doesn't need anything that's passed to setup. setup could be basically like, it doesn't have to be defined inside of it. Defining a function within a function, it just doesn't, like, we don't really need to do this, you know? It's just not it's not organizationally proper. It's just a little bit weird. It seems it's just strange behavior, you know? It's kind of confusing. Like, why did they do this? It makes you think, oh, there must be a reason that they put it in here. But if there's not really a reason, don't put it in there. And I think there's not a good reason for us to do that. Let's just make sure. So if we look at setup from the tip top, all it does, it takes client ID and it assigns the game object. It creates all these custom append list instances, lots of them. Then it creates the card group name dictionary, which is really just a placeholder, but it's verified required. Then we assign the card class, and that's very important here. The card class's face down image, and that's perfectly fine to happen in there. But there's no reason to define create card inside of this function. So I know now that it's safe to remove that. And then we have create double deck. And this also doesn't need to exist in the context because it doesn't have anything to do with setup per se. It should be called inside of setup, but it has no reason to be defined from the inside of setup. That is just weird behavior. It doesn't really make sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all this from setup down. So let's just copy this whole thing. We're just going to do a minor refactor here. So we'll copy, bam, alright. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a couple spaces between. Now we're going to paste in this new section here. And did we copy? Oh, so we just literally copied the whole thing. That's fine. So should we put the new version on top, or should we put the old version on top? Which one should be on top? I guess you'll put the first one first, which is the old one, and then you'll put the new one below it because it comes after. I guess that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I guess so. It doesn't really matter, but then you could, I will actually say I think the new code should go on the top because I don't know, it just seems correct to me to put the new code on the top because that's the code you're gonna see first, and then like the code that's toward the bottom, that's code that is like gonna be replaced, or like, you know, it's on the second shelf, it's in the secondary location. So we will, well, it doesn't matter at this point, this is literally just a copy and paste. So this, let's make sure we did this completely. Starts at def setup, and this one starts at def setup. Yep, that's literally the same. So what we can do is we'll put a div here, and then we'll put a comment, caution comment. Change this to a caution comment, and we'll call this below function. Comment created 6/19/25, and we're gonna say disabling being or we'll say disabled as is being replaced by above refactor. Made this refactor on 6/19/25 in preparation for testing the save system, which required some minor modifications to order of operations related to master deck deck population, etc. Also realized that this function had become slightly unorganized or disorganized, and saw a few different places that should be improved. So I kind of had gotten away from documenting all this stuff and being extra careful out of like just a desire to be done. And well, it cost me. Remember, it cost me that session. So now I learned again an old lesson to always document everything and just be extra careful. And now we're going to add a comment at the top of this, which lets us know that this is going to be the new refactored version. So this is going to be new refactored form. Made this refactor once it is prepared for testing. The setter also realized that this function had become slightly disorganized and saw future places it should be improved. Alright, there we go. So now we can go ahead and make the refactor. And if anything goes wrong, we can just re-enable the old code and just revert directly back to it. Easy peasy. So we got here. We want to... Let me look at this comment first. Well, we'll come back to that because it's already documented. I don't want to lose my little tabs I have in my mind as far as the code that I wanted to modify originally. And what we wanted to do is we don't want the master deck to be appended in create card. That is number one. That doesn't need to happen there. That should happen in create double deck. So in create double deck, we will do for deck in range of 2, for rank in master deck, and we're not going to create the card. We're going to just populate the double deck. So boom, like this. Let's see, booyah. All right. So for well, you know, we do use the rank to create the card. So we can just change this. This is fine. We can make a minor modification here. Rank is equal to Joker per Joker in range of 2. Master deck append. So we do want to use this series of for loops to create the cards, because we do need the rank and the suit provided by this. So we'd have master deck append. Yeah, that would get removed. And it would happen after. And then we would return the current card here. So we'll say return current card. And we'll say this is going to be current card equals. What the fuck am I listening to? World of Warcraft? Okay. Deck in range of 2 for rank and master deck. If rank is equal to Joker, Joker in range of 2, current card equals create card rank Joker. Master deck append current card. Initial deck append true. Else for suit and master deck suits tube. I guess you go to Joker in range of 2, current card equals create card, and then we do master deck append. Okay. And what we're going to want to do is well, actually, we don't have to have this create the double deck. We can move this. So this is, we can have this exist outside of it. And we don't even need to return the current card. We don't have to have that at all. We just have the cards be created. And this should actually just be called create all cards. And then we're gonna look for all the places where create double deck occurs. We're gonna go back here, we're gonna redo that to where it's called create all cards. And we're just gonna modify this to be called, let me make sure I got this right though. So this is going to be called create all cards, creates a double deck, blah, blah. We're going to modify this comment. So this would instead do something different. So resituate cards, no sound, would have to be placed. I guess that would probably be before append. Yeah, that pertains to the append. So that's another organization thing. That was a vague organization decision, and this is going to be better. It's going to be a little better, I think. So we need that line back that I erased. Where is it? A little bit of surgical work here. It's not the easiest thing. It's not the easiest thing, my dude. It's a little bit dangerous. Gotta be careful here. So let's copy that, redo those changes. And then we can. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move this right here. Now we will paste in the append. So we could have, I would say we could have a file that just has a variable, a global that lets us know if it's a reconnect. And in that case, it would check that variable, and then if the reconnect was equal to true, it just wouldn't do the appending of the deck. And we could actually have the deck append happen in the context of the create all cards. But, well, we would need that either way, even if we didn't have it inside of there. The only reason to have it inside of the create card function is because at that point in time, the card object is already being designated. So at that point in time, the card would like basically already be pinpointed. So it's kind of like once we have grabbed the card object, we would go ahead and add it to the deck, since that would eventually have to happen. As to where if it wasn't a reconnect, like we just wouldn't. I mean, if it was a reconnect, we just would avoid that line being called. And if we did it that way, then we could technically leave the function to be called create double deck. Little bit scattered here, but I think I got a solution here. I think. I really don't want to make another file just to have that variable. We could just have it pass the arg. It would get past the arg to setup, which would be reconnect bool. And if the reconnect bool was false, we would just pass the reconnect bool a hot potato from setup to create all cards. I really don't like doing arg hot potatoes, but I really also don't like making a file that that has one variable in it. I think one layer of hot potato is okay. It's not that big of a deal. The other alternative would be to just have this create all cards not be a function and be directly executed inside of setup. And you know, I'm actually not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that. The only thing would be is if we like modify it later and we would want it to be like segregated into functions. I honestly kind of like the idea of just having it all happen through setup, you know? I'm kind of torn on how I want to do this. I think I will just leave it as it is. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it as it is. And add in the hot potato, the arg here into setup. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Okay. So let's get rid of this, get rid of that. We will have this be the create double deck. So we'll be given that name. So we do want this to return the current card. And we do want this to append that current card. We want to move resituate cards no sound to be prior to this. True and then false. True and then false. Get rid of that. Oh no, 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 no. No, man. No, man. I don't wanna. I don't wanna, man. Hmm. That's supposed to be self dot. I don't know why. Yeah, this is supposed to be self dot. I don't know why we did. Yeah, I don't know. But that should be. My ears are hurting from this the headphone clamping down on me. Self dot reset trade cards. All right, let's move forward. Shit. Self dot reset trade cards. Okay. Somebody kill me, please. Pretty, pretty, please. I want to die. Put a bullet in my head. Oh, are we done? Are we done? We done yet? Huh? Oh god, I think I got this right. So many things. So many things. Create double deck, reconnect equals false, blah 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 blah. Da, 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 da. And then if reconnect is false, then we don't append the card to the deck. We just create the card. Which technically, we're technically not creating the double deck. We're technically creating all the cards and the double deck, maybe. But fuck it, it's not that big a deal. We'll leave it with that name. It's not that, like, I don't even know what I would call it. Create all cards and double deck, maybe? That's silly. We'll just leave it as create double deck. It's fine. Anyway. So yeah, only if we're reconnecting do we append to the master deck. Otherwise, we just create the card. This is going to be run when setup gets called. Prior to, and this is back where we started. Like now we're back to boom. We're back where we started. Let's see. So the whole point of this was so that the master deck would not be populated whenever we reconnected, so that we would insert the cards that are from the database. And also, this simultaneously fixed the issue wherein we were shuffling the deck see, there's an issue here now, though. Now we have the original deck is not gonna like exist. So that is a problem. So we would so this is silly a little bit. Well, I mean, we improved the logic overall, so it's like whatever. But now we have a little bit of a different issue. That's just how coding is. You refactor, you fix two problems and you create one. And eventually, you know, you keep refactoring it until it's like perfect. Sometimes the perfect never gets reached, but you know, usually it's an improvement. It's not perfect, but you know, it's usually an improvement over and over. Anyway, so now the master deck, original deck, actually in this case would just be it would be an empty. It would be an empty deck. Okay, let me put a note here. We'll fix that. I'm going to take a break. Let's see. Below line. Realize that this will not. Listen to the track, witch. Gangsta greasy. Real trap shit. Fuck with your boy. Damn, son, where'd you find this? So all this just to go back to save logic and say that we want this to be populated during setup. We have to loading of GPU, so we want to clear the car group first. So that solved that issue. So now it won't be populated during setup. We want to clear the car group first. And we should have derivatively solved, so we'll put Woo! God damn! God damn! Fuck I'm doing here. Alright, so let's check to see if we're at the root of the project directory, which we are. We're going to git branch to make sure we're at the right branch. We're on the feature branch. We're going to get add dot to stage all of our changes. It's giving us these warning, inconsequential. We don't need to worry about that. Git commit -m double quotes, paste in the devlog. Let's review the devlog. Save logic part. Pi final adjustments part 3. That's proper title. Proper date 6/19/25. 12:35 to 2:35. 2 hours. That's correct. 12:35 to 2:33. Begin work. Realize the message tag would have error been pre-uploaded via setup prior to data load from DB1 reconnect. Therefore, refactor the entire set of Pi file after a few improvements that could be made along with fixing a specific issue. Stop the line 41 to save logic Pi. 234 to 335. Stage cleaned and push changes to the remote repo and created a new local backup of the entire project. So let's go ahead and do that. Enter that commit. There we go. 6 files changed. 212 insertions. 48 deletions. We have a lot of insertions because we copied and pasted that basically entire setup file. We will get rid of that eventually. Now we can do git push to push this new commit to the remote GitHub repository. What did I say? Trump's nuclear attack doomsday plane arrives in Washington. Oh shit, cuz. Oh shit, cuz. It's getting real out there, bro. Oh man, I'm not gonna lie, it's stressing me out a little bit. Just a little bit. Anyway, so yeah, we pasted that. I mean, we pushed that to the remote GitHub repository. Now we need to save the local shit. So let's go to programming, projects, change this to reflect today's date. Then we're gonna go into the Canasta, copy the new one. We're gonna go into the backup, delete the old one. Which actually, I guess we should paste in the new one first. Why is it so slow? We'll replace the files. There we go. Now we enter in. We go to text. We do devlog. Go to the very end. Now we have 619. There we go. So that's proper. Alright, now we are done. We have a local backup, and we also have pushed in, have a backup in the cloud. So, good session. 2 hours, solid. Haven't done 2 hours in one sitting in a while. It felt nice. It was hard to get through it. I was a little tired, as always, but I feel like I'm waking up again. I might actually take the day off from the gym. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure at this point. But anyway, we did good. We got through that task. Setup was just a little ugly. We needed to refactor it. It's much better now. It fixed those couple issues, I think. So we knocked one thing off the to-do list, I think. We still have to finish going through the rest of that list to ensure that everything's good. And it is good that we reviewed the master save object list because, well, I just discovered a bug. And that's what we just fixed, because that would have caused a bug, because the deck would have been populated and then it would have been like inserted more cards into it. So that was a catch, that was a bug. So it's always good to go back and just review even after you reviewed. It's just, you know, you make some mistakes you just don't realize the first time around. It's just the way it is, you know? It's just life. There's things that your brain, I don't know how to describe it. You know, if you've ever, I can always liken it to learning a math concept. If you learn a new math concept, like, you kind of don't get it, and you're just like, I don't understand this. And then, all of a sudden, like, the next day, it's like, wait a second, I understand this. Like, oh, I get it. It's like, oh, okay. And then if you were to go back and look at your work where you didn't understand that you didn't know what you didn't know. You know what I mean? So it was just a blind spot. Like, it wasn't that you weren't paying attention. It was just that you now have knowledge that you didn't have before, and it helps you to fix a mistake that you didn't realize you made. Anyway, so good session, 2 hours, knocked it out. We're gonna finish going through that list. Hopefully there's not more of those where we have to go through the entire where we have to go through like and refactor stuff. Hopefully there's no more bugs or mistakes that we find. But you know, if we do, we do. We might have to organize the list a little bit. Remember, that is the main goal, to make sure it's in the proper order, so that everything, you know, loads in smoothly upon our reconnect. So yeah, we're gonna pick up where we left off when I come back. Probably gonna go eat, maybe to the gym. We'll see. It's up in the air right now. But anyway, I'll be back. Probably gonna do one more session today. So we're getting so close, like this close, dude. That close. We're that close to being done with it. Let me count the tasks, because actually, you know what? So this one right here, well, we're working on this one. Then we have I don't even see it anymore, but it was here. Okay, yeah, this one right here. This one right here is done. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tasks left, and some of these are literally like 5-10 minute tasks. This one's gonna end up being more like an hour, so you're looking at like 2 more hours total, which is cool.